Hi, my name's Patrick Mulville, and I'm going to do a broadcast about Leo Briol, and I want to welcome everybody to the Mulville Family History channel. So, this is my first one. It'll probably get a little better as we go. Okay, Leo Briol was my grandfather. Now, a couple of months ago, my granddaughter Megan, she asked me about him, because she didn't have any idea who he was. And I says, well, I told her, I says, most of this stuff you can find out online, when he was born, when he died, how many kids he had, blah, blah, blah. I says, but what I want you to know is what he was like, who he was. So that's the point of these broadcasts. I'm going to tell a few stories about him. I'm going to break this up into a couple of different parts, kind of because he was my favorite grandfather. He was a hell of a guy. Okay, he was born in Stearns County, Minnesota, in 1889, and that's 128 years ago. This is right now. I'm making this broadcast in the fall of 2017. So 128 years ago, he was born, and and he grew up and he lived there, and then sometime after, I suppose, high school, he moved on to to vaudeville. I mean, which was an amazing thing to me. He had he went and he traveled from the United States and Canada, from East Coast to West Coast, all over the United States, and they would perform on these vaudeville acts, and it was at the Orpheum Theaters. Now we have an Orpheum Theater in downtown Minneapolis. Well, that was the same Orpheum Theater. He performed there, and it was the same Orpheum Theater that they had in Seattle and in British Columbia, and all the way across from one end of the United States and Canada to the other. And he did this for a number of years. Now, what his act was that, which is, I never could quite get the two things together. When I knew him, when I was born, he was 60 years old. So when I actually got to really know him, he was damn near 70 years old, and all I knew was the old grandpa, but he was, really quite a guy. But what he would do is he traveled with a troupe, and they had an act that included music, it included wrestling, gymnastics, and his big thing was that he would, in fact, I've got a little picture here. I don't know if I can do it justice, but this was the traveling show, the Orpheum Theaters, and they were live stage plays. And let's see, which one is Grandpa here? He's the one right here. He's also the one right here. Okay, I don't know if it can do it justice. And he was the one down here. So, and he traveled all around the country doing this stuff, doing these physical, gymnastics and things. Well, his star to fame, though, was the speed bags. Now, here's another photo of him with his speed bags. I'm going to bring this up close. It was a contraption, and it was made, here, I'm going to tilt a little bit. It was a contraption, and it was made of metal, steel piping, and it had 11 different speed bags hanging all around this thing. You can see them here. And now, for you that don't know what a speed bag is, a speed bag is, you ever see Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali, and they're going pop, 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 and they're hitting this bag that's suspended from a board on the ceiling, and it bounces back and forth. And, okay, well, that's what a speed bag was. But in his day, this speed bag, he had 11 of these, and he would keep them all going simultaneously. Okay, now that you go, oh, that really sounds dumb. Okay, try it. Try one. Just try one speed bag. Now, it used to be when back in his era, when you went to the gym meant a boxing gym. It wasn't, treadmills and universal machines and stuff like that, like you have, Life Fitness and stuff. It was a boxing gym. and they had speed bags, they had heavy bags, they had all the stuff. Well, that's what he would do. He would, he learned how to do that, and he just kept adapting it and adapting it until finally he had this contraption with 11 of these speed bags. And you try to do one speed bag, and it is absolutely hilarious. You can't do it. I mean, it takes a lot of practice just to do one. And he would do 11 of them. Now, he actually had 2 of these contraptions. He told me this one time. He said he had one that had 13 bags on it. But he said that was a lot easier to do than the one that had 11. I don't know why. He never described it. But, I just called it the contraption. And so he had these 11 speed bags, and he would pound on them, and they would all be going. He'd use his hands, his head, his shoulders, his knees, his feet, and the extraordinary, and I mean extraordinary, dexterity that it took to do this is just beyond me. Because if you can try to do just one speed bag sometime, just try it once, you'll know that it's really, really hard to do one. Well, later on in his life, when, I was, I suppose about 9, 10 years, 13, 11 years old. And he had one. He had one mounted on a board on the floor. And, now I know that he was in his 70s at this time, 75 years old. And, speed bag is kind of like a basketball. You pump it up. Next year, you got to pump it up again. Okay. Well, this thing was pumped up. It was ready to go. And I'm thinking, it didn't dawn on me till later, but, that son of a gun, he had that damn thing. He'd been practicing on it. He's 75 years old, and he was still doing this, for pleasure, for fun, because he enjoyed it. Okay. And so he showed me, and he would stand and he'd bend way over, and it's instead of hanging from a big board in front of your face, and you hit it and it goes up and back and up and back, or you can hit it left and right. It was just mounted on the floor. And he says, a speed bag that's hanging from the ceiling, he says, is really easy. To him, it was really easy. I tried. And so, but he says, when it's on the floor, he says, if you miss and it goes crooked, you got to stop. You got to stand it back up, hit it again, and get it back in rhythm. Where if it's hanging from the ceiling and you hit it and you miss, it just comes naturally hanging down, and you can immediately start right over. Well, so he did this, and so 75 years old. So he's showing me. So he stands it up and he starts hitting it, and he's hitting it like this, boom, 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 perfect rhythm. Then he starts going side to side, boom, 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 and it's going back and forth this way. Then he starts hitting it with, starts hitting it with his elbows, and he'd hit it with his hand and hit it with his elbow, hit it with his elbow, hit it with his hand, the other way, boom, 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 boom. It's the funniest damn thing I ever seen. I'm watching it about going, holy cow, this is amazing. And he's, 75 years old, he's doing this, and he's showing me this. And I think he kind of showed it to me because I liked it. So I spent a whole summer up there, and I practiced on that damn thing every day because I knew I couldn't break it. You hit it, and he, go ahead, help yourself. So I practiced it. By God, by the end of that summer, and I mean, it took me a whole summer. I learned how to use my elbows with it. I learned how to hit it, forward, backward, sideways. It was really, really, and I was proud. And then I thought, how can it be that he can make 11 of these go at the same time? It's just remarkable. I'll show you that picture once again now. There's all kinds of hardness in there, okay? I have a few more pictures of him. This is actually what he looked like when I was growing up. He was the typical old grandpa, but there's more to grandpa than just this picture. He looks like a frail old man. Well, there wasn't a frail bone in this guy's body. He may look it. He's old, but there was nothing frail about him. He grew up in a farm country. I don't know where he learned to do the vaudeville act. I don't know where he learned to play music. I don't know where he learned to do gymnastics. If he just learned it on his own, but that was his early part of his life up until World War One. In World War One, then he had to go to war, and he was drafted into the army, and that's where he learned the blacksmithing trade. And the blacksmithing trade, well, at that time, everything was horses. World War One was horses. They needed blacksmiths in the field to, shoe horses, fix them, bridles, fix whatever they needed to have fixed because they were, it was World War One. You think now they got tanks and they got, planes, and they didn't have none of that stuff. They had planes with 4 wings on them, and I mean, they could fly 50 miles an hour, and wow, they really thought that was great, but that was World War One, mostly all trenches. And it was after that he came back to Albany and met my grandmother, and they married. But he was 30 years old by the time he came back from World War One. Excuse me. Okay, so that's the first part of Grandpa and his speed bags. Now, years later, years later. Okay, to me it was years later. It was a third of my life when I was about 13 years old. Oh no, I wasn't even that old. I was probably about 11 years old. I was about 9 when I learned how to do the speed bag. About 11 years old, I was in his blacksmith shop, and I was, that's another video. But I was in there and I was snooping around and everything. And this is a 2-story blacksmith shop. And so, he's doing his work. He's pounding on the anvil. And I headed up the stairs, And I get up there, and the upstairs is absolutely empty. I mean, the whole building, there is virtually nothing up there except dust. Lots and lots of dust. I mean, it had nobody had been up there in probably 30 years. And I walked up there, and there was the contraption, the real one. It had the speed bags were all flat. The machine was dusty, and it wasn't corroded, but it was grimy. But I mean, there was a window, and I remember that it was like it was hilarious. When they go, ta-da, and the sun shining through the window on this machine, and it was like a vision from heaven, and I thought, oh my God. And I'm the only person that I know of that's ever seen that machine. I mentioned it to all my aunts, my mother's sisters, and they says, he still had that? And I said, yeah, I saw it. I went up in the shop, up in the second floor, and they went, oh my God, I did not know. I'm probably the only living person that's ever really seen it. But what a fantastic. I sat down and I stood around it, and I walked on and I touched them, couldn't do it justice, but it was just the idea that, you're trying to touch something that brought so much joy. So anyway, I want to end this video now. I'm going to pass this on, and I'm going to start up another one about his blacksmithing days and after he started having children. So thanks for watching the video, and I hope to see you real soon again. Bye.